You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. Welcome to episode 47 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. In today's episode, we are discussing the cost of our mental health and therapy with licensed psychotherapist Dr. JaNae Taylor. JaNae is a licensed psychotherapist in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where she owns and operates Taylor Counseling and Consulting Services. JaNae works with Black men and women who are struggling with harmful self-evaluations. Therapy with JaNae helps them create a more empowered and focused sense of self that is more aligned with their beliefs and values. JaNae also provides consultations to Black entrepreneurs in every stage of the game who are working to balance their mental health, Black identity, and successful businesses. Minding My Black Business is a movement and podcast dedicated to the mental health of Black entrepreneurs led by Dr. JaNae Taylor. The goal is to engage, inform, and support other Black entrepreneurs as they manage their business of work. In this episode, Dr. JaNae and I talk about the cost of therapy and how and why Mental Health Awareness Month is important. Here is Dr. JaNae Taylor. Well, thank you, Dr. JaNae, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. I am looking forward to our convo.
Awesome. So tell the listeners about yourself and what you do.
Oh, my goodness. So my name is JaNae Taylor, or Dr. JaNae Taylor, depending on how you know me. I am a psychotherapist here in Virginia Beach, and I have my own private practice, Taylor Counseling and Consulting Services, where I work with individuals. I do some couples, some family. I focus exclusively on the Black community with issues related to healthy relationships, work-life balance, race-related traumas. So that's the big thing. I have a new venture, and that focuses on primarily Black entrepreneurs. And so that was born out of a need of wanting Black entrepreneurs to do to sort of take better care of their own mental health and emotional well-being. And that is called Minding My Black Business. So with that, there is a podcast called Minding My Black Business. And I also provide some consultation services to Black entrepreneurs.
Awesome. So Dr. JaNae and I keep calling you Dr. JaNae, but JaNae and I, we met up because we live in the same area, and I was just like, I wanted to collaborate with her, and it's just so happened that the way this interview fell, we're right at the end of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So let's talk about mental health and really why May is important to actually acknowledge our mental health.
Oh my goodness. So if you are anything like me, you are now looking up and seeing that the calendar in a few days, we're going to be in June, which means that the year is like half over. And I think that when it comes to our own health, I think there is a lot of attention and focus on our physical health as it should be, because our body we need to make sure our body's where it needs to be in order to keep us going. But I think just as much attention needs to be paid to our emotional and mental health. And so that's why May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, is so important. And it's at a good place where we're sort of getting out of winter. We're in the midst of spring, looking forward to the summer, so that we can do our own evaluations around how are we doing in terms of keeping ourselves on track or attending to things maybe we have let slide or ignore when it comes to our own mental health. Or maybe we are starting to get connected with resources that might be helpful for other people in terms of them getting connected with any sort of therapy or counseling services. So, Mental Health Awareness Month is May, and it's coming to a close. But I am still hopeful that there are people who can still get a few little nuggets in while we do this big awareness push for the rest of the month.
Awesome. So I want to really talk about the cost of mental health here, because I think everyone who listens to the podcast, or if this is your first time listening, you know that I'm a huge mental health advocate and going to therapy and seeing someone for your traumatic experiences, especially if you've experienced a miscarriage, or infant loss, or stillbirth, and having someone to talk to about your experiences so that you can get to a place of healing. So really, let's talk about the cost. Like, the physical cost is what I see a lot of the women in my sisters-in-law's Facebook group talk about, that they just they cannot pay to go to therapy. So let's talk about the cost of therapy, and then the many options that are out there for us around actually paying for therapy.
Yes, right. So in an ideal world, this would be like under your preventative care, just like a yearly exam, but that's not where we are just yet. There is some cost connected to therapy. So I'll just use myself as an example in terms of some of the cost that goes along with that. So the majority of folks that I see are using their health insurance. So that's a bonus. If you have health insurance, then there tends to be some level of coverage for what they call behavioral health, which is mental health services. And so that means that you can see a therapist. And when I say therapist, I'm using that one title, but this could be a licensed social worker, marriage and family therapist, a licensed professional counselor, a psychologist. So I'm using the word therapist for all those names. But you can see a therapist for the price of your copay. So your copay for going to see a physician might be $25, it might be $40, depending on your plan. So if you have health insurance, chances are you have some level of coverage there for behavioral health services that you can get with someone in the community. Now, there are folks who don't want to use their insurance at all. And the reason for that is because just like when you go to the physician, when you go to the therapist, in order for us to use your insurance, there has to be what they call medical necessity. So you have to meet the criteria for a diagnosis, which then means a diagnosis is being put into your medical file. So for some people, that means nothing. It doesn't matter to them. For other people, they're like, nah, I'd rather keep those two things separate, so they pay out of pocket. If they choose to do that, again, using myself as an example, so the first time you go into a therapist, you do what they call an initial intake or an initial assessment. That's where we ask you a whole bunch of questions. We get really nosy. But the idea is to get a background of what's going on for you, how long it's been going on, what sort of goals do you want to work on, how much support do you have, so that we can begin to make a plan for what treatment might look like. So that first appointment is $125. And then for each subsequent appointment after that, so regular like therapy appointment, is $100. So for some folks, that's fine. And for other folks, they might choose to use their insurance. Another route that people also really don't know much about, but I think they're starting to learn more about, if you have health insurance and you are working at least part-time, then you might qualify for making use of your EAP benefits at work. And so EAP stands for Employment Assistance Program. So if you are not quite sure about what that looks like, just contact HR or go to HR's website. They oftentimes will provide for you sessions for free. Now, caveat, there's limited sessions. So sometimes people can get approved for anywhere from 4 sessions. I've seen as many as 12 sessions in which they are approved for services, for counseling services. And the reason for that is because they also want to make sure that their employees are healthy, and also that you get enough to see if this is worth your while, and then you can, roll over and use your insurance or pay out of pocket, whatever you need to do. Also, if you are connected with the military in any way, if you're an active service member, if you're a dependent of a service member, you have EAP benefits there. So that is through Military OneSource. Military OneSource will authorize therapy sessions. So they are usually 12 sessions per issue. So there are plenty of options to get there. And if you have a, a flex spending account. You can use that and get reimbursed for your services. We will provide you with a receipt or an invoice, and you can get reimbursed, or a health savings account. So those are some ways in which people are trying to be really creative to finance it, because you're right, it's not free in any way. It definitely is a benefit to being consistent in it, but there are lots of ways in which you can make use of the service.
Awesome. So there are a lot of ways out there, y'all. So if you've heard her list them all out. So definitely take advantage of them with your company's insurance. So now that's about the physical cost of therapy. Now let's talk about the other cost of therapy, which is, if we do not seek out a therapy. So tell us really, why is it important for Black women in particularly to recognize that we have had some trauma and we really do need to talk to a mental health professional?
Right. So, I think that it is, okay, so first of all, I'm biased, right? Because of my own position as a Black woman and as a therapist. Therapy holds such a sacred spot that's so very different from a really close friendship or a really tight support network. And not saying that you don't need those things. In fact, you very much do, especially if you're going to therapy. And so the reason why I say it holds a very sacred spot is because this is a conversation, a relationship where it is truly all about you. There is no back and forth. I don't then hear my client's story and then say, you know what, that's messed up. Now let me tell you about me. No, it's really all about them, their issues, whatever they need to work on. And I am their champion. I am their advocate. I hold them accountable. I am their cheerleader. So we do a whole bunch of things, and all of that is confidential. And so I am legally bound to keep all those things between the two of us. Now, who my client chooses to tell, that's their own business. But so not only is it a space in which the space in the area is all about you, but you're working with someone who is trained. And so what that means is that we have a lot of background in human behavior. We also have a lot of background in mental health diagnoses. So if you are thinking, man, I just have been feeling really tired and I just have been sleeping a lot, I don't really have much of an appetite, I don't really feel like talking to anyone, I'm kind of isolating myself, and you're thinking maybe it's just a tough time, well, your friend or your colleague or your support network might not realize that you might actually be dealing with a diagnosis of depression, which there are some very specific ways and to go about treating that, which your therapist would know, which is outside of maybe what your friend would know. And it's the same. I like to sort of parallel it with medical treatment, because in my mind these things are very similar and they go hand in hand. And if I had a broken arm, I wouldn't just try to wrap a bandage up with it. I would go to a physician. I would go get an X-ray. I would make sure the bone is set correctly. I would go back for checkups. I wouldn't just, ask my friends and family how they think it looks, to make sure that it gets corrected. I would go to someone who has the skilled and licensed and training to make sure that I am healing correctly from the trauma of having a broken arm. And so in my mind, this would be the same sort of thing. So it's best to sit with someone who has the training, the certification, the license to deal with these sort of emotional issues and help you get to a place where you're feeling better, more confident, more motivated, and getting treated exactly for the issues that you bring to the table.
The Sisters in Loss community is holding a baby shower on Saturday, July 14, 2018 in Virginia. We are celebrating the expectant rainbow babies of our sisters in loss by gifting them new and gently used baby products. We are talking about the works from diapers to strollers. If you know another angel mom who is currently pregnant with their rainbow baby, please go to babyshower.sistersinloss.com to register to receive gifts. If you would like to donate to the community baby shower, go to babyshower.sistersinloss.com for more information. So why why do you feel like there's still a stigma amongst Black people to seek out therapy? Like, why are we so stubborn?
I love us. I really do. So I think there are a lot of things. I think it's scary. I think it's completely scary, the idea of coming to talk to someone about the things that I tell nobody about. Mm-hmm. That is terrifying. So I'm going to sit with you and then talk about the things that I don't even share with my partner? No, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? Mm-hmm. Or the person I've not told my spiritual leader or not told my family. Why would I do that? But the idea of, I think one of the burdens that we have is this idea of secrets, and that we have to be we have to hold the burden of them. Mm-hmm. And secrets are silent killers, and they're so unnecessary. And I have watched so many people just sort of experience a level of freedom and independence, just being able to talk about things that have just been in the dark for so long. And so I think that's one piece, is that it's terrifying to sit and talk with someone else. I think another piece is they're not quite sure what's going on, and who actually does therapy. And so one of the things that I try to work on is to humanize therapy, and particularly to humanize therapists. So I'm fairly active on social media. That changes from moment to moment. But I think that is a new wave that's starting to happen, where therapists are creating more spaces on social media, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or Snapchat, or whatever, so that we can say and even show, like, here I am. I'm a real live human being. These are the things that I do. This is what my office looks like, to sort of take away some of the mystery for what actually happens in the room and who you would be sitting with. And then there's another part around, so I think there's the secret. I think there's the idea of not really knowing who will be treating us. But then I think in general, when it comes to eye health, we all tend to, not all of us, but there does tend to be a very strong sense of, I'll only get help, and this is for physical too, I'll only get help when I am at my worst, when I'm at a crisis point. Mm-hmm. So I see a lot of people who come in and we are way past the point of us sitting having a conversation. Now we need to go to the hospital, because there needs to be some very, we need to get some emergent treatment to the symptoms that are going on right now, because we're not going to be able to have a conversation that's going to be fruitful at this point. And so, so sort of treating your health, both physical and mental, as, well, I'll treat it like an urgent care situation. Well, no, that's not going to really be helpful in the long run. So yeah, I think that there is this new wave of self-care that people are talking about. And so my hope is that therapy, some of the stigma around, some of the mystery around, some of the fear around what therapy is, gets to sort of fall away. I'm hopeful in seeing it in pop culture these days. You know, we see it on TV shows like Insecure, and it's in movies now, and people talk about it. You see it on reality shows. People are going to therapy there. We get to watch that happen. So that is my hope, is that it just sort of becomes ingrained into the everyday culture of the things in which we do, so it doesn't seem like such an odd thing. And I also think it's really helpful when people feel like they can sit across from people who they can identify with and look like them. Because I often hear that from clients too. Like, I have been wanting to go for a while. I just wanted to sit across from a Black woman or a Black man, or, insert identifier there. So yeah, I think there are a lot of reasons, but for me, those are the things that pop up initially.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that having those identifiers does help, especially in this space where a lot of women are dealing with trauma from losing a baby. Not having a therapist who understands the loss of a child, but then, of course, not even having someone that looks like you and has gone through some of the similar experiences or challenges to get pregnant or what have you, also plays a role in that therapy relationship too. So I think that definitely does push people away from actually finding a therapist and seeking someone out. So for those who are listening, can you give them some ways that they can easily find someone who looks like them or who they identify with? If they're a Black woman, they're looking for someone that's specifically in this kind of space?
Sure. So a couple of things come to mind automatically. So Dr. Joy Brad in Hartford has done such a wonderful, Hart in Bradford, has done such a wonderful job of creating a directory. And her directory is Therapy for Black Girls. It's not just for women, it's for men and women alike. So it is broken down. So you can go to the website, which is therapyforblackgirls.com. And on the directory, it takes you state by state. Every provider there, every therapist there has a picture. And we also have a profile, so I'm also there as well. And there are several folks in this area, in the Hampton Roads area, that are on the directory as well. So it gives a write-up about the work that we do, our specialty areas. It even talks about any insurances that we might be on. It provides a link to our business website, so you get a chance to get even more information in that way. So that's the first thing. The second directory is Psychology Today, and it sort of works a little similarly. You can put in your zip code or city or state, and it also will create a list of therapists as well. Same thing, it has a write-up and profile. I'm there as well, and it does the same thing. So a profile, it even provides a link to the business website. You can even send an email from there. You can send a phone call from there as well. So both of those directories, I think, do a fairly good job about giving you a snapshot of who's there. I also will say this too. So for those who have not ever done therapy before, you can do all this wonderful research, go to the website, make a first appointment, sit with someone. And I like to think about therapy as a little bit like, so it's a relationship for sure, but in some ways you're taking the same approach that you do to dating. And what I mean by that is not only is it about that person's expertise, but it also is about fit in terms of their own style. So every therapist has their own way of doing the work with people. And so I like to make sure that I tell people that too. So we're going to have this first appointment where I get all this information, and at the end we make a plan to see if it makes sense for us to work together. Maybe you're needing something from me that I know I'm not going to be able to provide. An example of that is that I tend not to be one who gives a lot of like homework or assignments. There are others who do. And some people feel like they need that from moment to moment. And so if that's not something we can't create a side plan around, then I will say, you know what I can't do is do this, but I can provide you with some referrals. And so that's the other thing too, is that if you get with a person and it's not a good fit, you should be walking away with some referrals of at least 2 to 3 folks that they recommend that I think this might be a better fit. It's not me, but I know somebody who might be able to do that. Sometimes that can take a little wind out of your sails. You've done all of this work to do that. But it is worth continuing to keep moving forward in the process, because once you find that right fit in terms of the therapist, you'll know immediately. It'll feel right. You'll feel at ease. Maybe you're not going to tell them your whole life story in that first session, but it'll feel like this is a good spot that I'm in. I feel like I really can do some work with this person.
Awesome. So let's talk about minding my Black business. let's talk about your podcast and your movement, because I love it.
Yes. I try to insert that phrase in as many times a day as I can to mind my Black business. Minding my Black business is, the way that I like to phrase it, is a movement and a podcast. So on the podcast, I have entrepreneurs come by and we chat. And I am really curious about a few things. So like, what brought them into entrepreneurship? We also talk about some of the things that are distinct to being an entrepreneur, like isolation or managing the financial fluctuation or the anxiety of keeping a business open or marketing, blah, 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 insert other things. So my job, or what I feel like my duty is to create some community around that. And oftentimes because entrepreneurs are so focused on keeping the engine of the business running, they don't necessarily have many other entrepreneurs, specifically many other Black entrepreneurs that they can check in with from time to time to get some support. That's one part. And if they are spending all their energy and time focused on building the business, sometimes they miss those markers that tell them that maybe I am dealing with some anxiety and need to get some support around this. Or, oh no, my relationships are suffering because I've spent so much time doing this and ignoring my family and loved ones and friends. And so I need to figure out a way to pull those things back together. Or maybe I am dealing with some depression, or maybe I'm even dealing with some trauma as it relates to having a business. And so that might seem like a weird statement to say. And so what I mean by that specifically is for Black entrepreneurs, when it comes to opening a business or maintaining a business, they have to do a lot of things. If they are providing goods and services to everyone, then oftentimes there can be some trauma when things happen in our current day situation. And they still have to figure out how to go to work and unlock those doors and continue to serve everyone with a smile. Or maybe a customer comes in and says something that's offensive or even aggressive to them because they, for whatever reason, then they have to manage that as well. So entrepreneurship is wonderful. It's challenging. And my goal is that we're not operating in silos, that we have a place to go to sort of get re-energized, to get some cheerleaders and someone to hold you to task. Like, maybe you should go take a break, or maybe you don't need to do 40 things at the same time, that sort of thing. And so ideally, every entrepreneur will have on their team, just like you have a web developer, an attorney, an accountant, you also have a therapist. That's my goal. That's what I want to happen. And so I'm going to figure out how I'm going to make that happen. But in the meantime, there's the podcast. I do consultations with the entrepreneurs. We also have a Facebook group where people share their events, and sometimes they even talk about their struggles around entrepreneurship. We share stuff about entrepreneurship in the news, some wonderful things, and then some things where people have sort of talked about their own mental health journey. So yeah, we do a whole bunch of stuff, trying to be a little bit of everywhere for our fellow business owners. But yeah, that's us. Minding our Black business. That's what we're doing out here.
And we are. And we will continue to mind our Black business. Yes. So how do we continue this conversation past May? So, May will wrap up Mental Health Awareness Month. So what should we be doing on a daily basis personally towards our mental health, taking care of ourselves and doing a lot of self-care?
A couple of main things come to mind. So you're right. One thing I will bring to your attention, so May is wrapping up for sure, but in July we have Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'll be back around in July.
All right. We're going to mind our Black business in July too. Right.
Exactly. That's it. So individually, some things that I think are helpful that we all can do. It's those basic, self-care things. And when I say self-care, I'm talking about some really basic needs to keep us going throughout the day. So making sure that we're getting the appropriate amount of sleep. Ideally, we are doing anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. I say that every time I say that, somebody laughs at me. I'm like, I'm not joking. That's serious. People are probably getting about 4 to 6 hours. That's not enough. That's not enough hour. So 6 to 8 hours of sleep. That you are getting some consistent nutrition throughout the day. So whatever you consider to be a breakfast, whatever you consider to be lunch, whatever you consider to be dinner. What I'm finding is that people are skipping breakfast, or they're only eating one meal, or they're just snacking throughout the day. There's just it's just kind of a hodgepodge of how they're going around nurturing their body. And then some form of exercise. And so what I mean by that, we're not training for, a 5K or the Olympics. I'm literally talking about just getting up and stretching. Sometimes that helps as well. I've done it. I'm guilty of that, doing that in between sessions. I sit a lot because I'm a therapist. And that has done wonders for me. Just to set up a stretch for about 10 to 15 minutes, going outside, getting some sun in your skin. Not too much because it's hot. It was like 90 degrees. So, do that responsibly. So just some basic things in terms of like managing your body. And then the other part is being honest with yourself so that you can be honest with others. What do I mean by that? So I'll use myself as an example again. So this past week was a complete roller coaster. At the beginning of the week, it was so crazy. It was so bananas. I had so much stuff going on. I didn't feel like I was going to get any of it accomplished. And I just felt like I was like treading through like mud. And so what was happening was that it was taking me longer to get things done. I also wasn't able to like call back people who were like texting and messaging me. I was kind of avoiding them too because I didn't want to talk to them because I was frustrated by what was going on. So I had to realize, I had to be honest with myself. Like, you're going through a really tough time right now. You don't have to continue to keep up the speed in which you normally go because this particular thing is taking a lot of energy and focus. So focus on that thing. You'll be able to get back to all these other folks. And these people will be there because they're in your corner regardless. And so by the end of the week, some of the stuff was getting checked off and marked off because I just kept moving forward. And then at the end of the week, I was able to tell people what was going on. And they was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I had to be honest with myself first in order to tell them, as opposed to act like it wasn't happening or to keep moving as though I was fine when I wasn't. I was very frustrated by the whole situation. So being honest with yourself so that you can be honest with others, and then they'll know how to best help you. So the self-care pieces and honesty, I think that's a good start.
Well, where can we find you on social and where your podcast and website's found?
Oh, my goodness. So the private practice website, so if you happen to be in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area, that is TaylorCounselingConsultingServices.com. The Minding My Black Business, that's also, the website is mindingmyblackbusiness.com. And on Instagram, that is Dr. JaNae Taylor. On Twitter, it's at Minding My Black Biz. We have a Facebook group that is Minding My Black Business. I think that's all the big things. But yeah, if you can get to either website, so the mindingmyblackbusiness.com website, that takes you everywhere. And then the practice website, Taylor Counseling Consulting Services, will take you to the Minding My Black Business one as well. So everything's all connected together.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. JaNae, for being on the podcast and sharing with us about the cost of mental health.
Yes, thank you for having me. And I am so grateful for everything that you're doing, Erica. I love your podcast. And so, yeah, if I can continue to be a help in any way, just let me know.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I pray that this show was inspirational and a blessing to you. For show notes, visit ericamcafee.com/podcast. Please join us in our offline discussions in our private Facebook group by going to sistersinloss.com. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please rate and subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. I pray that you all have a blessed week. Keep the faith, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.